Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we've got this incredible story for you. It's about revolution and reversal, a story that spans over 800 years. We're looking at how our really radical movement, one that literally tried to tear up the rulebook of the old religious order, somehow ended up coming full circle and rejoining the very system it fought so hard against.
And that really brings us to the core question here. It's a bit of a historical mystery. How does a revolution that's all about rejecting holy books and scriptural authority end up writing its own holy book and basically rejoining the mainstream? It tells us so much about how ideas can change under pressure.
All right, let's jump back in time. We're going to 12th century India, and we're meeting a group called the Sharanas. Now, these guys weren't just tinkering around the edges. They weren't just reformers. No, they were revolutionaries, and their goal was to completely take apart the existing social and religious hierarchy.
So the whole foundation for this revolution, their big idea, was something called Anubhava. And it was as simple as it was profound. Basically, they said, look, truth isn't something you're going to find locked away in some ancient book that only a priest can read for you. Instead, it's something you have to experience for yourself, directly, personally. You had to be able to verify it. For its time, this was just a mind-blowing idea.
And you can really feel just how radical they were in this quote from their leader, Basavana. Wow. I mean, listen to that language. That's not, let's make a few changes. He's talking about putting a sheath on the Vedas, putting shackles on the Shastras, and literally cutting off the nose of the Agamas. This is a declaration of war on the entire Orthodox system.
And get this, even the language they chose to speak in was a political statement. They completely rejected Sanskrit, which was the language of the elite, the priests, the scriptures, and instead they chose Kannada, the everyday spoken language of the people. With that one move, they democratized spiritual knowledge, kicking out the gatekeepers and inviting absolutely everyone to the table.
And you know, this wasn't just talk. It wasn't some high-minded philosophy. They actually built this new society from the ground up. They had these core principles. Kayaka, the idea that all work, any work, is a form of worship. Dasoha, this radical idea that what you earn belongs to everyone, to the community. And maybe the most explosive part, they actively went after the caste system. We're talking inter-caste dining, even inter-caste marriage.
So you can probably guess what happened next, right? When you have a movement this radical, it's not going to go unnoticed. It sparked a fierce, violent backlash from the establishment. And to survive, the movement had to change. And that's where the counter-revolution, a reversal from within, really begins.
Okay, so here's how it went down. The big turning point was in 1167. A really radical intercaste marriage provoked this violent reaction, and their whole commune at Kalyana was shattered, its followers scattered to the winds. Then, fast forward a couple of centuries, you've got the rise of the Vijayanagara Empire, which was all about promoting a more orthodox, Sanskrit-based Hinduism. The pressure to fit in was immense. And all of that culminates in the 15th century, when they create a whole new scripture to basically rewrite their own history.
And this new scripture, the key tool for this whole reversal, was called the Siddhanta Shikhamani. And here's the kicker. It was written in Sanskrit, the very language the original Sharanas threw out. It was cleverly disguised as some ancient conversation between sages, but its real job to completely flip the script, to invent a new Veda-friendly history that its founders would have, absolutely denied.
So what you end up with is this massive split. Two traditions that are almost polar opposites. On one side, you have the original Shadananas, speaking Kannada, the people's language, valuing direct experience above all and trying to tear down caste. On the other side, the new tradition. It's back to Sanskrit, it's all about faith in the old scriptures, they've got new mythical founders, and you guessed it, hierarchy and caste are back in the picture. The difference is just night and day.
Okay, so how on earth did they actually pull this off? How do you rewrite a movement's entire history? Well, the New Orthodoxy was pretty smart about it. They used a few key tactics to totally change how people remembered the original revolution. Let's break it down.
All right, step one, change who the founder, Basavana, was. In his own writings, he's just a humble guy, a social reformer, a servant of the people. But in these later texts, suddenly he's a divine being, an incarnation of Shiva's sacred bull, Nandi. Now, why would you do that? It's pretty clever, actually. If he's a human reformer, his actions are a model for you to follow. But if he's a god,
Well, you just worship him from afar. It totally defangs his radical social message.
Okay, step 2. They just invented a whole new origin story. So you go from the actual historical founders, Basavana and his crew in 12th century Karnataka, and you replace them with these 5 mythical sages, the Panchacharyas, who supposedly just emerged from Shiva at the dawn of time. What that does is it completely erases the real, messy, historical beginnings and swaps it out for something timeless, grand, and divine.
And this might be the most telling part. The historical revision went so deep, they actually started changing the original texts. Researchers looked at the earliest manuscripts of the Vachanas, the Sharna's core writings, and the term Virashaiva, that's the name for the new orthodoxy, it's just not there. It was systematically added into later copies to create this fake link, to rebrand the movement with an identity its own founders never even used.
And look, this isn't just some dusty old academic debate. This historical split, this schism, is the direct cause of a huge socio-political fight that's happening in India right now. It's all about the identity of this community.
So today, all this history has basically split the community right down the middle. On one side, you have people who identify as Lingayats. They say, we are our own religion, founded by Basavana, and our foundation is that original anti-Vedic revolution. But on the other side, you have Virashaivas, who argue, no, we are an ancient part of Hinduism, our founders are the mythical Panchacharyas, and we are totally in line with the Vedas. So the political struggle you see today, it's really a fight over which of these two histories is the real one.
And all of this leads us with a really fascinating and kind of provocative question that goes way beyond just this one story. Who gets the final say on what a faith is? Is it the founder with their original radical vision? Or is it the generations of followers who come later, who adapt and change and sometimes, completely reverse that vision as they move through the messy currents of history? It's a huge question about identity, about memory, and ultimately about who really gets to own the story.